Hey everybody, welcome back to H4Games. I'm Tony.
And I'm John.
Today we're taking a look at some items from ChopsWare.
Games are hard, they're hard for games.
Including a modified and backlit, beautiful Game Boy Advance, and a Game Boy Color as well.
Yeah, Game Boy Color with Frontlit.
In addition to that, we're taking a look at some Franklin badges, which you may remember from the Mother series. Let's go ahead and get started. So, quick note about these, we did receive them for free, but that will not be affecting our review score, ultimately.
That we know of.
First things first, Chops had contacted me. He basically runs a store where you can customize your own Game Boy Advances and Game Boy Colors with whatever color and button scheme that you want. These were not mine. I didn't send them in. He just had them, modified them, and sent them my way. I designed this one, the Game Boy Color, because I wanted something that looked 90s and radical.
You kind of made it look like a yak back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So John was like, it looks like a yak back when we were talking about this episode. And I'm like, what's a yak back?
Can I have a sip of your drink? No. Yes! No.
Yak Back gives you the last word.
Yak back. Yak back.
And then he described it, and it was like,
Yeah, that memory just came flying out of the archive. And I was like, you know, you press it and you'd root, and he's like, oh my God.
I told him, you know, do whatever sort of design you want for the Game Boy Advance, like surprise me. And I really like it.
Yeah, that works way better.
Yeah, it's much better than my design.
It also really does work with like the curves and having that accent color there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he outdid you.
He chose this color scheme because he said that it reminded him of the special stage colors in Sonic & Knuckles.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about what's different on each of these other than the color variations, starting with the Game Boy Advance.
Chop said that he installed a new Aftermarket Model 2 Game Boy Advance SP screen to a 32-pin board, added a toggle switch to allow for control of the display, and added a glass screen protector.
So yeah, we're turning it around here, and of course you have this toggle button in the back here to go from on to more on.
I do notice that if it's very dark, if you're in a dark room, turning it down a bit is just the right level. But a bright room, turning it up all the way, it looks quite good. But there is one thing where I didn't notice that apparently this screen does a slight interlacing. It doesn't do sawtoothing. You don't get any of that like toothing between the frames, but you will notice a very faint flicker, but only if you move this or move your head. But if you're just playing, you really don't notice it. And when it's on the lower setting, you don't notice it at all.
And to be clear, this interlacing has nothing to do with the mod.
Yeah.
It's just that the visibility is increased
that is present
because of the mod.
On all of the Game Boy Advance models we have that I filmed in slow motion.
Yes. So jumping into the GBC, the Game Boy Color, Chops says, I front-lit the screen using a high-end Loca, which is sort of an adhesive glue for the screen.
Yeah, yeah. So it would almost be like the lens oil that you'd have to use on a microscope. It's just, it bonds those two things together so light goes through nice and even.
Okay. Versus like when I put my screen protector on my Switch and it's just full of bubbles.
Yeah.
So we front-lit the screen using a high-end Loca and installed our signature toggle switch to allow for control of the front light, just like the Model 1 Game Boy Advance SPs. He says, we also added a new speaker, which should provide louder sound than the stock speaker, and a glass screen protector, which allows for increased screen clarity. The color scheme reminds me a lot of Surge energy drinks, which I think is pretty cool. Obviously, we already talked about the color scheme. I think the color scheme looks awesome.
Yeah.
The screen, because they swapped it out for that SP, like the second generation SP, and the double brightness.
It does look very good.
Oh my God, it does look incredible, especially some more like pretty games, like Sword of Mana.
When you put in the Sonic game, it really popped. Those greens coming out, it really did look good.
And I think we're more used to screens akin to this nowadays, but when you look at the first generation SP and when you look at the regular Game Boy Advance screen, and it's just like so dark and so dim, and you know the front lighting washes it out with the SP that you know, those were not great.
No.
And it took them a long time to give us backlighting with the Game Boy Advance SP.
We're so spoiled with OLED now.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so, I mean, but this is just, it's a sexy piece. I like it. Now, the only issue that I had with this, that I also had with that, was that the buttons, sometimes if you catch them slightly off, like to the side, they don't register as well. It kind of has that third-party feel.
Yeah, I noticed that sometimes, like when I was playing Sword of Mana, I had to really press a little bit harder. Because I was like, you know, just tapping it like I'm used to, but then I had to give it a little bit more in there. But that may change. It may like wear in. We've only had these for a
couple days.
Yeah, short period. You see how I'm holding it right here? If you look at my right middle finger's knuckle, it's right over that.
Yeah.
So as you're playing, sometimes
it goes on and off. And you don't have to fully press it in for it to turn on and off.
It's a fairly light little tap on there.
To get it to stay, you press in and out.
Yeah,
right?
You have to
click it
there.
But to get it to kind of, it's kind of like when you're flickering a light switch and you're kind of in between and it's going off and on.
Yeah.
It has that when you're just touching it. So that is sort of a design flaw where I don't know where else you would put it necessarily, but...
I guess you could get used to a slightly different grip.
Yeah.
But some of us have so many years playing these.
Yeah.
Might be a little hard to do. Working on these is always a pain in the ass because Nintendo decided to use these stupid little tri-wing screws. And I want to thank Chops for replacing these all with Phillips head. Anyone who has any like small screw set, any like small electronic screw, chances are you already have it. You don't have to order some special irritating as hell little screwdriver, because those drive me up the damn wall.
The screwdriver drives you up the wall?
Yes. Screw drives me up the wall.
One of the things that's kind of unfortunate.
Screw drives me.
One of the things
up
that's
the wall.
God damn it.
Screw drives me.
Stop.
Up the wall.
So again, just like you said, it is just like the Game Boy Advance SP. For me, the design of this, I like it. The front lighting, I've never been a huge fan of front lighting.
No, I've never been a big fan of it, but I will say that the button position is perfect for it.
Yes, significantly better than with the Game Boy Advance, where you're kind of poking at it, you know, in the back. And it doesn't have that sort of, you know, it's not turning it on and off just by a light touch. You really have to press it in and press it out again for it to actually activate. With the Game Boy Color, I definitely think it's a significant upgrade from your stock, right? But there are a few issues with it that I have noticed. The buttons seem to be even a little bit more of that third-party feel than the Game Boy Advance. Sometimes they don't completely register if you are slightly off. Like, you have to go dead center for it to fully register.
And also, they don't have that hair trigger
Yeah.
that you're used to.
Now that said, once I started, you know, putting my full thumb right in the center, which is normally how you play a Game Boy anyways, it was totally fine. And I will also say that the front light on this does kind of bring out and highlight some flaws with the screen itself. There looks to be like some dead pixels on here.
Yeah.
Cartridges that take a lot of power.
Yeah.
Like any sort of cartridges that have
motion
like
control,
motion, vibration, the Game Boy camera causes the light to kind of flicker in and out. So he just recommends your standard Game Boy Color for this thing. He had sent me a little bit of an update saying that there was a soldering issue with the Game Boy Colors, and he was actually not taking returns, but people could send them in and get it fixed. So what do we got here, John?
We have Franklin badges, and I've got a more, I think it's supposed to be a more Mother 1 appearing one, a bit more obvious that it literally just says Mother right on it, the logo. And you've got the Mother 3 Franklin badge.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. Like, normally I would expect more of like the, what's the business card website that everybody gets their business cards from?
Vistaprint?
A Vistaprint, where it's like, it'll do, but it's not great. I was almost expecting when Tony said like, oh yeah, this guy makes these, it was like, ooh, it's gonna be like regretsy. But no, these are nice.
Yeah, and I think that the Mother community is very starved for...
Oh yeah. Starved, abused.
Yeah, for this sort of thing. You know, Nintendo isn't treating them necessarily very well.
RPG boys represent. Thirsty Nintendo boys. Nintendrones.
What we would rate these would also sort of be combined with what people would have to pay for them. So for
Yeah.
the Game Boy Color, you know, depending on what sort of modifications you get, it's anywhere from like the $60 range to like the high $80 range.
And the Game Boy Advance is about $100 to $130. These prices aren't too bad, and if you buy one of these, probably in 2 years, those will be the prices for the normal ones anyways.
If the bubble keeps getting bigger and bigger, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think with the Game Boy Color, I think it's, oh man, like this looks really cool, but you can get everything like in terms of compatibility with Game Boy Color, Game Boy, with the Game Boy Advance. If you're a diehard Game Boy Color person, I mean, go for it. But ultimately, I was impressed with this, like really impressed with this, whereas this was just kind of cool. And then as far as the Franklin badges go, they are what they are. I mean, they're $10 little badges, and they're just fun,
nice.
They're fun little things if you're a Mother fan. If you're not a Mother fan, then everyone on the internet will hate you. The end. Like the time that I gave Mother 3 an 8.5 out of 10 and got crucified for giving it less than a perfect score on our review.
We now call that the passion of the Tony. Coming up next, our review of Sonic 1 and why we gave it a 1 out of 10.
That's right. So that said, we're going to go ahead and put a link to Chops' website in the description below, just so everyone knows. He's going to be slowly actually phasing out the Game Boys. So if you want one, get on it. Thank you so much for sending these to us. We certainly appreciate it. And they're going to look real nice in the old handheld collection, so thank you so much. And thank you everyone out there for watching. Please subscribe, hit that notification button, and we'll see you next time.
Maybe.
Maybe we will,
If
maybe
you're
we
good.
won't. Cheers.
And rest in peace, Billy Harrington.
Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and a share, and we will see you guys next time.